The perspective of Detours. An employer sent out a memo to all of his employees that he was going to give them a Christmas gift. The year had been a good one, financially speaking, for the company, and so he wanted to give them a little something special. He put on the note, just one thing, I want everyone to make a contribution to this particular charity that I'm involved with after you receive your gift. You can make it for whatever amount you want, but you must make some contribution from your bonus to this charity. I would also like 100% company-wide participation. The word went out to the employees that the employer wanted everyone to participate in contributing to the charity of his choice. But there was one employee, everybody knows that one, right? There was one employee that refused, claiming that his Christmas bonus belonged to him and he would not contribute to the designated charity. When the owner of the company found out that this one employee refused to go along with his request, he called him into his office. Once in his office, the employer asked if it were true that he was not going to participate in giving to the charity out of his bonus check. Okay? What happens? The employee replies, yes, that is correct. I'm not going to give. But you do understand that I was seeking 100% company-wide participation in this, the boss asked. Yes, I understand, the strong-headed employee responded, but I do not want to be forced to give to a charity, so I'm not going to do so. The boss leaned back in his chair, thought through his word choices carefully, and then said, well, that gives me two options then. Option number one is to convince you to change your mind so that I can have 100% participation in giving to this charity. Option number two is that I fire you so that I can have 100% in giving to this charity. I will leave the choice up to you, but I will have 100% participation in giving to a charity. To which the employee quickly replied, well, no one ever really explained it to me quite like that before. So yes, I'll give. Perspective will bring wisdom to our whims and clarity to our choices. Yeah, it will. It gives us discernment between detours and our distractions. See, not everything that pulls us off the path is a divinely authored detour. Some things are distractions. They are things that keep us from our destiny but have no purpose in developing us for our destiny. I often think to myself that if you are a person who is truly focused on your vision, you're a person that's truly focused on your goals, most of the time you don't have time for other things. Like you don't have time to be a busybody. You don't have time to get yourself thrown off track. And when you find yourself distracted, it's imperative for you to get back on track doing what it is you're called to do. So he says here, these things could be people, hobbies, thoughts, or even work that is not in alignment with God's purpose in our life. Perspective will help you gain the insight to see what is a detour designed by God and what is a distraction you simply need to muster up the courage to let go of and move on from. Many of us are waiting for our time to come when we will reach our full potential of our divine design. When we will reach that place that God is taking us in order to bring about our greatest good. Bring him the greatest glory and expand his kingdom the most. Destiny involves coming together of these three things: your good, God's glory, and the advancement of his kingdom through the impact on others. Only when you have the true perspective of destiny can you fully live it out. If you're not interested in God's glory, or you're not interested in his kingdom, because you're only interested in your good, then you're not ready to be connected with your destiny. God wants 100% participation in his kingdom agenda. but it is your choice if you participate or not. On this journey to destiny, you can slow it down or you can speed it up based on how you respond to the detours that God places in your life in order to develop you, and the distractions that you simply need to let go of. He says, there are many reading this book who are waiting for God to do something. You're waiting for change to come. Maybe you're in a situation in life where you're saying on a regular basis, I didn't sign up for this. I know I went through a season of years where I'm looking around and I'm like, I didn't sign up for this. I didn't sign up for the harm. I didn't sign up for the betrayal. I didn't sign up for the backbiting. I didn't sign up for the gossip. I didn't sign up for people making up entire storylines about my life and they never talked to me. I didn't sign up for this, God. But I said, I know that all things are working together for my good. God, I don't understand everything that's happening in this moment. I don't understand everything that's happening in this season, but I know you're with me. And I know you haven't given up on me. And I know that you sent me to this place. And I know that you've called me and ordained me and anointed me and gifted me. And I know that the things that I'm called to do, I'm not yet doing them to the fullest capacity that I could do them in. So I know that I've got some more miles ahead. I know I've got some road ahead of me. And I'm not going to allow what people are doing in this particular moment of my life to get me off course. You have to have a made up mind. He says, perhaps you didn't sign up to still be single, or walked out on as a spouse and left as a single parent. Maybe you didn't sign up for a miserable relationship, or to be stuck in a job that brings you no satisfaction or barely pays your bills. It could be that you're in a difficult health situation or lost a loved one. And you might be sitting there saying, I didn't sign up for any of this. The heartache, the grief, the pain, the separation, the people looking at me funny or crazy, right? This is not how I wanted my life to be. But despite believing God and asking God and calling on God and looking for God to make a move, you might be still stuck wondering when you will arrive at your destiny. If this is you, what I want you to know as a believer in Jesus is that you do have a destiny. And oftentimes you are closer than you think. He encourages us, pass the test. Don't throw in the towel. Respond rightly to wrong treatment. I'll say that again. Respond rightly to wrong treatment. There were certain situations in my life that I found myself encountering. In one particular instance, I went through the same trial 3 times. I won't talk about what it is here. I may talk about it one day in a book. But I went through the same trial 3 times. And after the 3rd time, I was in the same exact situation. I had to say, well, I said it in all three times, but because I was in it again for the 3rd time with the same spirit, I said, God, what am I supposed to learn in this situation? What am I supposed to learn? Because clearly I didn't learn it time number 1 and I didn't learn it time number 2. So here I am, time number 3, in the same situation, thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I cannot believe we're back in the same situation for time number 3. So I actually had to step back and I had to walk myself through it as I was going through it to say, what did I do in the other 2 times that I need to not do this time? Because I want to actually pass this test so I can move on with my life. So as I evaluated what I had done in the first 2 times, I began to make adjustments the 3rd time. Why? Because I wanted to pass the test. Why? Because I didn't want to see this same spirit again trying to come against my destiny. That's why I made the adjustments. And sometimes, though the thing comes up against you, it's not them. Hear me again. Sometimes when something comes up against you and it's spiritual, it's not them. I'm going to say it one more time. Sometimes when the thing comes up against you and you see that it's a spirit, it's not them. They're being used by that spirit, and you have the choice of whether or not you're going to maneuver and learn in that situation so that you can defeat that spiritual attack. So it's not really even about the person that's being used as a tool for that spirit to come operate through. Yes, it's God showing you something about yourself that needs to adjust and that needs to change, so that if you see this spirit coming again, you know how to respond. And so that is my example. That was something that happened to me, and I'm like, really? This is time number 3. This is the same spirit. So once I began to recognize what spirit was coming at me through a person, then I learned how to respond to that spirit that was coming at me through a person, rather than making it about the person, if that makes any sense. All right. He says, do good, defend the defenseless, honor God, grow in faith, trust, wait, and before you know it, your destiny suddenly will be upon you. But yes, those things are often difficult to do. So remember this: as you go through these detours toward your destiny of living out your divine design, the thing that will allow you to keep going despite life circumstances is having the right perspective. Perspective is how you view something. It's like the boy who lost his contact lenses and was looking for it for 30 minutes. He couldn't locate it, but his mother walked in the room and asked him what he was doing. And within a minute of looking for the contact lenses, his mother had found those contact lenses. And then the boy asked, well, how did you find it so quickly? The boy asked, and the mother told him, we weren't looking for the same thing. She said, you were looking for contact lenses. I was looking for $150. That's a big difference in perspective, right? It's only found in that perspective. She said, no. You were looking for contact lenses. I was looking for the $150, because if I didn't find them, I was going to be spending another $150. So their perspectives were different. He was looking for the contact lenses. She was looking for her money. Okay. So perspective not only affects what you see, but also what you achieve. That is why it is critical to have the right perspective while pursuing your destiny, particularly when you are on a detour. When you are in that spot where you have not yet hit your sweet spot, you need to know how to view things. You may feel far removed from purpose, passion, or even your peace. But sometimes, whether you realize it or not, you are only a step away. He says, one of the things I dread doing is walking on a treadmill. Yes, ma'am, it will. Walking fast and sweating while going nowhere, while covering absolutely zero territory, is not my idea of how to spend my life. I'm allergic to boredom, and boredom is just about all a treadmill has to offer me. That's why if you ever find me on a treadmill, you will also find me watching television. So common is this setup that in nearly every fitness center in the country today, which is true, you will find televisions built into the experience, and or even the exercise equipment hanging on a nearby wall. This is because most people feel the same way I do about that treadmill, that it just isn't that much fun. What does the television do in helping you or me to exercise? It shifts our focus while we work. It gets us looking at something different from the anguish we may feel at the moment. When you are focusing on television while agonizing on the treadmill, it doesn't remove or reduce the effort, but rather it enables you to bear it a little better. As you maneuver to your destiny, I want to share with you what will take you through these ups and downs, twists and turns, enabling you to go up the inclines and down the paths so you can arrive at God's intended destination. The key to your spiritual success is focus. Someone type focus on the screen. Focus. That is the key. He says, the secret to Joseph arriving at his destiny, thank you, is he refused to leave God out of the equation. Now I'm going to just take a pause right there. The secret to Joseph arriving at his destiny is that he refused to leave God out of the equation. While in the deepest, darkest pit of jail, the Lord was with Joseph. While serving the bases of people in the prison system, God caused all that Joseph did, even in prison, to prosper. While living in the house of Potiphar as a house slave, the Lord blessed his hands. Over and over, we read in Joseph's story that the Lord was with Joseph. Even when Joseph finally stood before Pharaoh and said, if ever there was a time of self-promotion in order to maneuver his way out of a dungeon, it would have been then. Joseph deferred to God in all things. It is not me who will answer Pharaoh, he stated. He said God himself will give Pharaoh a favorable answer. Now, keep in mind, he's talking to the man that everybody in the nation at the time is calling God. He's talking to the man that everybody in the nation at the time is bowing to as God. And he says, I'm not going to be able to give you an answer, Pharaoh. But Pharaoh, known as God among men, God, the true God, is going to give you an answer. How about that? Every time we see Joseph, without fail, we see God as well. God was never a sometimey God with Joseph. He wasn't a fair weather friend or an addendum. Nothing happened in the life of Joseph that God did not allow and approve and make himself visible within. In fact, when Joseph confronted his brothers to calm their fears regarding their unrighteousness, he invoked God's name 5 times in summarizing how God was involved in his detour to destiny. And you can read it in Genesis 45, verses 5 through 9. We are not told this in scripture, but I imagine one of the reasons God was with Joseph was because Joseph was with God. Joseph didn't lose sight of God. Joseph didn't give up on his dream. Joseph didn't turn his gaze to his surroundings. The Bible tells us that blessed are those who have a pure heart because they will see God. So what is one thing that we can pray every single day? God, give me a pure heart. Give me a pure heart in my circumstance. Give me a pure heart in how I relate to other people. Give me a pure heart in my interactions with people. Give me a pure heart in my motives with people. Give me a pure heart as I pursue my career, my job, whatever it is that you call me to do. Give me a pure heart. And don't allow my heart to be muddied. Don't allow my heart and my spirit to be tainted. There are certain things that I do not watch. There are certain things, right, that I won't participate in. There are certain things happening in the world of gospel, right, that I don't have any commentary on, that I'm not sharing the videos on. There are certain things you will never see on my page, social media wise. Why? Because I'm interested in keeping a pure heart. All right? And some of these things just do not lend for purity. They don't. They don't lend for purity. They don't promote purity. They don't promote righteousness. They don't promote thinking good about other people. So there are certain things that you're not going to see me involved in because I've made a commitment to having a pure heart. That when I speak to people, I want to speak to them from a pure place. That when God uses me to prophesy, I don't want to prophesy based on my own heart. I want to prophesy based on the word of the Lord to that person. And I don't want my mind and my heart and my spirit to be cluttered with all this other stuff I've heard about that person. Okay? So it's important that you make up your mind, that you decide what's going to keep my heart pure. What kind of boundaries are you going to set for yourself that you can have a pure heart? That God can come in, that the Holy Spirit can abide in you. To me, it's the greatest compliment for someone to encounter me or to be in my presence or to pray with them, and they say to me, the word of the Lord was pure in your mouth. The word of the Lord was pure. Or the presence of God was pure when I encountered you. To me, that's the greatest compliment in the world. Not, oh, you're doing this or you're doing that or you have this or you have that, but your heart was pure. That's my greatest compliment. I listened to your music and your music was pure. I get that quite a bit and I'm thankful for it because that was the goal of my music, was that it would be a pure sound. So again, he's telling us, Matthew 5:8, blessed are those who have a pure heart because they will see God. We want to see God in our surroundings. We want to see God move in our situation. We want to see God as we encounter people. We want people to know that the presence of God is there. Part of that is, God, give me a pure heart and keep my heart pure before people. Keep my heart pure. I don't want to be contaminated. I don't want that. I want a pure heart so that I can experience God and so that those people that I encounter can see God in what I'm doing. All right? So he says not everyone gets to see God. Not everyone is privileged to live a life of God's close and clear confirmations and directions. Not everyone experiences God's favor, whether in a difficult scenario or a seemingly blessed one. Purity doesn't refer to perfection. It refers to the absence of distraction, otherwise known as a blemish. When your heart is open to God, your eyes will be as well. God, it's another prayer I pray. Lord, give me a pure heart. And here's the other one. Father, help me to see things the way you see them. Help me to see people the way you see them. Oftentimes, we can see people out of the lens of our own experiences, or we can see people out of the lens of our own pain. And so we wind up discounting sometimes the people that we meet. And sometimes we wind up trusting people that we should not trust. Just to be honest with you. And so I've learned to say, Lord, show me this person. Show me their heart. Show me their spirit. Show me what you see when you look at them. Give me your eyesight and your perception when I'm encountering different people. Why? Because, number one, I want to make sure that I'm making a decision or I'm allowing somebody into my life who really should be there. And number two, I want to make sure that I'm treating them the way you see them, not the way I see them. Because the way I see them might discount something about them that you really do value about them. But if I don't ask God to clear my perception of this person, I can almost guarantee you that I'm probably not going to treat that person the way that God would. So it's very simple. These are not difficult prayers. God, give me a pure heart. God, when I encounter people, allow me to see them the way you see them. And if there is a need, Allow me to know what that need is so that I can meet it, so that you can be glorified. And that has worked for me in terms of prayer, to be able to help people. And they would wonder, well, how did you know that I needed that? Or why did you give that particular thing to me? And then I would just tell them, I just simply asked God what you needed. And he told me. And so I did it. And so you get into the habit, right? You get into forming that habit, and then it becomes second nature to you to ask God for that. All right? So he says, there is an individual in our church who seems to receive more signs and confirmations from the Lord than I have ever known anyone to experience. It's almost as if that person and the Lord live like intimate friends with daily back and forth conversations. This perfect person is not perfect, but this person has a relentless purity of heart toward God like few I have ever seen. So when God speaks it, it is heard. When God directs it, it is seen. When God confirms, it is clear. It is like a cadence with the King himself. As a result, God's favor is witnessed almost everywhere. Joseph experienced a level of communication and favor with God unlike many others. But I don't believe it is because God forced himself on Joseph. Rather, Joseph's heart purely believed the promises of God, and his perspective patterned the Lord's. If you take God seriously, you can never be a victim to your circumstances, because your circumstances wouldn't be there without God allowing it to be used to take you to your destiny. When the enemy is able to remove your consideration of God in your circumstances, particularly if it is a negative, he has succeeded in adding delays to your detours. If Satan can keep God out of the equation of your understanding, you will lose perspective on the treadmill of life and only see the sweat of the upclimb of the hill. So what happened with Joseph? God began to be the sum total of Joseph's life. All through his story, God was referenced no matter what the circumstances were. It wasn't when just Joseph was happy. It wasn't just when Joseph was with his dad. God was referenced through every part of Joseph's life, whether the situation was going for Joseph or whether the situation was against Joseph. God was what the ocean is to a pebble, the expanse surrounding everything around that pebble. The ocean totally encompasses the pebble. Yes, he is good all the time. The ocean totally encompasses the pebble, as we ought to acknowledge God as totally surrounding us. Rather than pop a pill or pull out a pipe, fill yourself completely and consolingly with God. The thing that marked Joseph apart from so many others is that his life was punctuated by God's presence. His life was punctuated by God's presence. Joseph had no credentials to get to where he needed to be. He had no resume to land him a job saving the nation of 2 or 10 from famine. He had no personal contacts, political contacts, relational contacts, or even circumstantial contacts. He could pull no strings or pave no paths. He was a nobody in a foreign land with no resume or name to assist him. Everything that society looks for to make you a success, Joseph had none of that. All Joseph had was God, but God was more than enough to make up for everything else he lacked. It seems that we live in a society where so much emphasis is put on striving after what culture says you must have, be, and do in order to climb the ladder of success. Society tells us we need to pile on our degrees, our network, look a certain way, say and do certain things to get somewhere in life. But look at Joseph. He's what I call subtraction that adds the increase. He was a man stripped of every single thing a man can be stripped of except for one thing, his destiny. Because his destiny sat securely in the hand of God. When your destiny is in the hands of God, you're trusting God with all your heart, in spite of your circumstances, mistakes, detours, and distractions. No one can block what God has for you. You may have lost a lot in life, but you have not lost your destiny.